Have you ever felt like you were the only one doing the right thing, while everyone around you seemed to be going in the completely opposite direction? Well, let me tell you a story about a man who knew that feeling all too well. His name was Noah, and his story is one of the most incredible tales of faith, perseverance, and rescue ever told. Imagine a world thousands of years ago. It was a beautiful place, but the hearts of the people had become corrupt. The world was filled with negativity and selfishness, and it grieved the very heart of God, the Creator. But amidst all this darkness, there was one man who stood out. Noah. The Bible describes him as a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. He wasn't perfect, but his heart was in the right place. He chose kindness when others chose cruelty. He chose integrity when others chose deceit. One day, God spoke to Noah. He shared his deep sorrow over the state of the world and revealed a plan that was both heartbreaking and hopeful. A great flood was coming, a flood so immense it would cover the entire earth to wash away all the corruption. But God, in His mercy, wanted to save a remnant. He wanted to give humanity and the animal kingdom a fresh start. And He chose Noah for this monumental task. God gave Noah a set of instructions that must have sounded absolutely unbelievable. He told him, "Build an ark." This wasn't just any boat. It was to be a massive vessel made of cypress wood, with rooms and compartments inside, sealed with pitch to make it waterproof. The dimensions were staggering: 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. To put that in perspective, that's about 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high, longer than a football field and as tall as a 4-story building. This was a construction project of epic proportions, and Noah was just one man with his family. Can you imagine what Noah's neighbors thought? Here he was, living in a place far from any ocean, and he starts building this gigantic boat. Day after day, year after year, the sound of hammers and saws filled the air. People must have mocked him. "Hey Noah, expecting a little rain." They'd taunt, "Where are you planning on sailing that thing? To the moon." They laughed, they ridiculed, and they dismissed him as a crazy old man. But Noah's faith was unshakable. He wasn't just building a boat, he was delivering a message. As he worked, he preached, he warned everyone who would listen about the coming judgment. He pleaded with them to change their ways, to turn back to a path of goodness and kindness. He offered them a way out, a chance for salvation, but his words fell on deaf ears. People were too caught up in their own lives, too comfortable in their ways to listen to his warnings. They saw the ark, they heard the message, but they refused to believe. While the world laughed, Noah and his family, his wife, his 3 sons Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives worked tirelessly. It's estimated the project could have taken anywhere from 50 to 100 years. Think about that dedication. A lifetime of labor, fueled by faith in a promise. while facing constant ridicule. Then, as the ark neared completion, God gave Noah the next set of instructions. He was to gather animals, not just a few, but 2 of every kind of living creature, a male and a female, to keep them alive. For the clean animals, those suitable for sacrifices, he was to bring 7 pairs. Suddenly, the most incredible procession began. From every corner of the land, animals started coming to the ark. Lions and lambs, eagles and elephants, snakes and squirrels, all marching, flying, and crawling, 2 by 2, into the vessel Noah had built. It was a miraculous sight, a divine gathering orchestrated by the Creator himself. Finally, the day came. Noah, his family, and all the animals were safely inside the ark. And then God himself shut the door. This was it. The time for warnings was over. For 7 days, they waited inside the sealed ark. Outside, life went on as usual. People likely pointed at the silent, massive boat and had one last laugh. They had no idea what was about to happen. Then it started. A single drop of rain, then another, and another. Soon, it wasn't just rain. The Bible says the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened. Water gushed from below and poured from above. It wasn't a storm, it was a deluge. The water level rose relentlessly. People who had laughed now screamed in terror. They ran for high ground, climbing hills and then mountains, but the water kept rising. There was no escape. The floodwaters lifted the massive ark, and it began to float. Inside, Noah and his family were safe, bobbing on the surface of a world being reborn. Everything they had ever known, every person who had mocked them, was gone. It must have been a terrifying and sobering experience, hearing the roar of the water outside, knowing they were the sole survivors of the human race. They were completely dependent on God's protection in that floating sanctuary. For 40 days and 40 nights, the rain fell without stopping. The water covered the highest mountains. Every living thing on the face of the earth perished, but the ark, a vessel of faith and obedience, floated securely. For 150 days, the water covered the earth. Imagine being inside that ark for all that time, surrounded by the sounds and smells of hundreds of animals, trusting that God had not forgotten you. Finally, God remembered Noah. He sent a wind to sweep over the earth, and the waters began to recede. Slowly, painstakingly, the water levels dropped. After many more months, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat, but they couldn't just open the door. Noah was patient. He first sent out a raven, which flew back and forth. Then he sent out a dove. The first time, it returned, finding no place to land. A week later, he sent it out again, and this time it came back with a freshly plucked olive leaf in its beak. It was a sign, a beautiful symbol of new life and peace. The land was healing. After waiting another week, he sent the dove out a final time, and it didn't return. The earth was dry enough for it to make a new home. After more than a year inside the ark, God finally said, "Come out of the ark." The great door was opened, and Noah, his family, and all the creatures stepped out onto a clean, fresh, new world. The air was pure, the sky was clear, they had survived. The very first thing Noah did was build an altar and give thanks to God. It was an act of pure gratitude for their preservation and for this second chance. And God responded with a promise. He placed a beautiful rainbow in the clouds as a sign of his covenant, a promise that he would never again destroy the entire earth with a flood. So, whenever you see a rainbow, remember the story of Noah. It's a powerful reminder of the consequences of ignoring warnings. But more importantly, it's a beautiful story of faith, obedience, and God's incredible grace and promise of a new beginning. It teaches us that even when it feels like we're standing alone, doing the right thing matters. Faith, like Noah's Ark, can carry us safely through the biggest storms of life. Thanks so much for watching and sharing this story with me today. If you enjoyed this, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more stories that inspire and uplift. See you next time.